Hello and welcome. Now I'm sure anyone who sees this has probably already heard of or played Metro, Stalker, or Chernobylite before. Okay, you probably haven't heard of the last one, and that's fair, but I do plan on changing that at some point. But today, I will be talking specifically about the Metro games, and even more specifically, the beginnings of 2033 and Last Light and the ending of Exodus, because that game is so different and the final level is more interesting than the other super linear level. I will also be writing short summaries of the sections as I go. And before anything else, I should talk about some things that apply to the entire series, such as gameplay, environment, design, and all of that good stuff. Every Metro game does something that I don't think is done well anywhere else, which is to take environments that would usually make a person feel uncomfortable and makes those locations the only form of comfort the player gets. And this might just be me, but I get really nervous and a little afraid when around a lot of other people. So the idea of having to live with like 100 other people in a damp metro station with no form of escape sounds like hell. And the creators of the series took that concept and found a way to make it seem kind of nice, even to a paranoid loner shut-in like myself. It kind of feels like the vaults from Fallout, and what they should have been. And while the series makes the damp underground seem comforting, they managed to make the surface both beautiful and horrifying. The ruined Moscow looks like a true concrete jungle after the apocalypse, with the twisted steel broken from the buildings hanging like vines, the mutated creatures roaming the ruins as the new wildlife, and humanity replaced with a new dominant species. The surface is lit with the now blinding light from the sun, while the underground is lit by warm hues of yellow and orange from campfires and lanterns, further making the underground and dark rooms on the surface feel more like home. And I guess the gameplay is fun with its responsive controls and wide range of weapons, alongside the almost excessive amounts of difficulty options to play through the game with. Also, this is another kind of personal thing, but I really like how the inventory works in all the games. Instead of opening a menu and dragging things around, all you have to deal with are pretty intuitive hotkeys. And honestly, there's only one thing that bothers me with the gameplay in the series, but it's something I can talk about later, because there really should only be one layer of just autism in a video. And I think that covers my overall thoughts on the series, so I guess I should get into the actual games themselves. And also, I don't think I need to say this, but there are spoilers for the entire Metro series coming up. This story takes place 20 years after World War III, with the last 40,000 people hiding in the vast tunnels of the Moscow underground. One of these people, named Artyom, lived like most of the residents of his home station, Exhibition. He was a mushroom farmer and the stepson of the station's leader, Alexei, the man who saved Artyom from the bombs when Artyom was just a toddler. Artyom is one day asked to join his stepfather in picking up the station's supplies from a ranger named Hunter. During this usual exchange, the station is attacked by mutants known as Nasalises. Armed with nothing more than a revolver from an emergency lockbox, Artyom helps Alexei and Hunter hold off the Nasalis swarm before they can get into the hospital packed with the victims of humanity's new threat, the Dark Ones. Hunter hears of these new creatures and decides that he is the one who has to deal with the threat. Before Hunter leaves, he gives his badge to Artyom and tells him, "If I do not return by morning, bring the badge to the leader of the Rangers in Polis." Hunter then goes down a tunnel towards the greatest threat to humanity, alone. Hunter never returns, and Artyom's story truly begins. The Metro story starts in the best way possible in my opinion. It establishes what the norm is for Artyom, and shows us that he was around in this world before we as the players took control of him. It also does something important for the series going forward. It sets up Artyom as just a guy who didn't originally set out to save the world, but just as a man who wants to help the people. My favorite part of this introduction is the Nasalis ambush, because it doesn't just act as the combat tutorial. It is also an extremely good introduction to the environmental storytelling. The walk to the ambush room leads you through the hospital, and this shows that the only thing separating the ambush room from the hospital is a single door. That and a farmer, a bureaucrat, and a single soldier who just came down from the surface. It sets up a situation without explaining what's going to happen with a generic line like, "Keep the guards at the doors, they follow the blood," you know, shit like that. It keeps everything ambiguous for long enough for the scares to work, but not too long to where nothing makes sense. So instead of explaining why the attack happens before it does, the attack is explained just before the full combat segment begins, so it feels like the instantaneous thought of a man trying to reason everything out. To be honest, I could probably keep going with this part for a while, but I still have another section I really want to talk about, and 2 other games after that. So here's like a short summary of the game up to the first level on the surface. We catch up with Artyom again when he is woken by his friend Eugene. Artyom, Eugene, and 2 others load up onto a supply cart headed towards Riga. They are then told they have to take the longer way around due to the main track needing repairs. The leader of the trip, a man named Boris, agrees to go down the unmaintained tunnel. When going down the unmaintained tunnel, the crew notices shadows with no source. The unnamed merchant refers to the shadows as them, showing he knows a bit more than everyone else. But that doesn't matter, because as the cart starts to get closer to them, the crew begins passing out. Artyom manages to stay awake long enough to see something bright approaching the cart from behind. Artyom then falls asleep. Artyom wakes up just as the cart gets attacked by Nasalises, and defends the knocked out passengers to the best of his ability. He manages to keep Eugene and Boris alive until he himself is knocked out of the cart, but manages to hide under a pipe until he can safely get up. Artyom then runs after the cart while being chased by the Nasalises and avoiding the shots fired from the guards at Riga. Artyom is saved at the last second by Boris as the guards begin burning the entire tunnel behind him. Later, the cart crew celebrates their survival. Artyom leaves the celebration before it's over to meet up with the drifter named Bourbon. Bourbon offers to lead Artyom as far as Dry Station, which is a short walk to Polis, and to further sweeten the deal, Bourbon even offers Artyom his AK. Artyom accepts the deal so that he can get to his goal sooner. Bourbon then leads Artyom through an old and unused tunnel, across a destroyed bridge, and to the next station that they need to go through before they can head to the surface. The market. Bourbon and Artyom need to fight off an ambush of Nasalises before they are let into the market. When the 2 get in, they are questioned about what they are doing. Bourbon pays off the guards so they stop asking questions and they are allowed access to the surface. As Artyom exits the metro, the ruins of Moscow slowly come into view, and Bourbon says, "That's the dead city. Welcome home, Artyom." The introduction of the Moscow ruins are just beautiful. Like, just look at this. You slowly come up the stairs from the metro, and you slowly see more and more of the city through the hole in the wall of the terminal building. There's also a blink and you'll miss it jump scare that makes you look at the hole in the wall in case you weren't already, which does draw your attention to the view, but it also shows how easily the mutants can get around the city, while you struggle and crawl your way through the collapsed hallways and under the fallen buildings. I also find this level one of the most threatening and dreadful in the entire game. I think of it like this in the best way possible. My heart drops every time the front door to the terminal opens, because I know I'll have to sneak past the hordes of watchmen and demons while also managing the amount of gas mask filters and ammo I use doing so. And if you think you can fight your way through this, you only have the starter weapons, so if you try to shoot the demon blocking your path, you will lose that fight unless you can hit it in the head without being detected by any of the watchmen around. Which is something I love about the combat in this game. Sneaking past everything is always a viable option, and you're even rewarded for being stealthy, with having to deal with fewer enemies, because you can save ammo and the med kits you'll need later on. You'll also save on gas mask filters because you aren't wasting time fighting, you are quickly maneuvering your way through the enemies. And that's all I can really think about for 2033, so I guess I should just move on to Last Light. Artyom is on guard duty with a few other people at his home station of Exhibition. This group hears their can chimes getting hit by figures they can't see, and after a few seconds the guards are attacked by a group of Dark Ones, which cause the men to see each other as Nosalises. Artyom defends himself, but the Nosalises turn back into his friends as he kills them. Artyom looks down at his dead friend, then slowly looks up at the Dark One. As blood covers his vision, Artyom is woken from his nightmare by a man named Khan. He tells Artyom that a young Dark One survived the bombs dropped on their home a year ago. Soon after this, a fellow ranger walks up to the door and tells Artyom that he needs to speak to the ranger leader, Miller. The three leave Artyom's room and make their way to Miller. As they pass through the armory, Artyom gears up for a mission he doesn't know he was already assigned to. As the trio makes their way to Miller, they hear rumors of a ranger named Letsnitsky stealing a chemical weapon and just disappearing. Artyom doesn't ask questions further and heads straight to Miller. When the group gets to Miller, Khan explains the situation with the young Dark One and how Artyom has to save it. Miller has Khan arrested because he thinks Khan's mind was destroyed by the Dark One. He then assigns his daughter, Anna, to be Artyom's overwatch and a final resort if Artyom's mind is taken by the Dark One. Anna and Artyom make their way to the surface, and when they get there, Artyom finally sees the destruction he's caused. While Artyom is in awe of this destruction, he is attacked by a pack of watchmen. Artyom and Anna fend off the watchmen, and Artyom makes his way further into the ruins of the Dark One's city. Artyom quickly finds the young Dark One with the assistance of Anna. He chases the Dark One into a corner and goes to pick up the creature. That's when the Dark One tries to take over his mind. The creature tries its hardest to get into Artyom's mind, but it's only strong enough to knock out the man who destroyed its home. Artyom is asleep for a few hours and then gets taken by an enemy force. I don't believe this game has as strong of an introduction as the previous entry. I do believe that the beginning does effectively demonstrate why people saw the Dark Ones as the biggest threat to humanity. The Dark Ones were shown to be able to take control of someone's mind, and to make the person see whatever the creature wants them to see. It's also hinted later in that level that the Dark Ones may be able to process the radioactive dust in the air outside, which leads me to the first section that takes place outside. The surface is once again beautiful, and this time we get to see the destroyed botanical gardens which were once home to the Dark Ones. And once again, the creators knew what they made with this scene because the first enemies you fight are watchmen that climb out of the crater, which is meant to draw your attention towards said crater, still burning with the fire from the nuke launched to kill the Dark Ones. The chase for the young Dark One allows the player to see a bit more of the Dark One's architecture, and how these creatures moved between their structures. I would love to talk about the marshes level, but the beginning kind of encapsulates everything I like about this series, and also I want to get this video done soon. So let's just get to the part that makes the series my favorite, the very end of it. Novosibirsk, unlike Moscow, is truly and wholly dead. As the crew aboard the Aurora approach the city, they see no signs of life. Not even the mutants seem to have survived the radiation of the surface. As Artyom, Miller, and Sam monitor the radiation levels outside of the Aurora, they decide that Artyom and Miller are going to be the only ones who go into the heart of Novosibirsk to find the experimental drug needed to save Anna, Miller's daughter and Artyom's wife. They also decide that the other crew members, including Sam, are to collect everything of value from around the train yard. Artyom and Miller give their goodbyes to the others inside the train and load all of their needed gear into a refurbished van. The two then make their way to the university and the Akademgorodok. Whenever they cannot proceed further with the van, Artyom and Miller decide to head into the nearby metro so they can get into the university without the worry of radiation. In these tunnels is where Miller and Artyom meet the only survivor in Novosibirsk, and it's a child named Kirill. Kirill explains to Miller and Artyom that there were many more survivors, but as resources began to dwindle and people got more desperate, they chose to do what every person does during times of desperation. They fought. However, the survivors had no real threats they could blame their situation on, so they chose to go after the people running everything, the temporary government known as Ozcom. The people tried to revolt against Ozcom, but lost, and the leaders disappeared and were never seen again. They were presumed dead, another few bodies on the mountain of death that is Novosibirsk. Miller asks if the boy has anyone else, and Kirill says that it's just him and his father, and that his father is out on a mission looking for maps to possible safe zones. Miller says that he and Artyom need to find the Institute, and then they will be off to Lake Baikal, which seems to be unaffected by radiation. Kirill asks if he and his father can go with them, not knowing the sad truth of what happened to him. Miller says they'll come back for the boy and his father after Artyom and Miller get the medicine from the Institute. Kirill tells Miller that a nearby satellite facility has more detailed maps of the area, and that's also where his father went. Miller decides that he and Artyom need to split up so Miller can get the maps and Artyom can get the medicine for Anna. Miller also tells Kirill to keep both of them updated on what the other is doing. Artyom fights his way back to the surface, slowly succumbing to radiation poisoning, which causes him to see visions of his wife dying. Artyom follows the footsteps of a giant creature that might not even be real, but they happen to lead him to the Institute. Upon entering the Institute, Artyom finds out that something did survive the radiation: the Blind Ones. Artyom sneaks past all of the gorilla-like creatures, encountering more as he goes deeper into the Institute. Artyom does eventually find the medicine, but before he can escape, he gets chased by a Blind One. Artyom only manages to escape because it impales itself on a broken metal railing and then gets stabbed in the head with a falling icicle. Artyom is soon found by Miller and Kirill in the van. Artyom, almost dead from the radiation, is injected by Miller with an anti-rad drug given to him by Kirill. Artyom falls in and out of consciousness as Miller drives the van to the nearest railroad track so they could get picked up by the Aurora. Miller eventually succumbing to radiation himself, and Artyom takes over driving. Barely able to stay awake, Artyom makes it to the track and finally passes out until morning. Kirill wakes Artyom when the Aurora gets into view, and Artyom gets out of the van still holding the medicine and collapses to the ground. I fucking love this ending. It's a perfect ending for the Artyom character. His entire goal is to get everyone to safety, to an area unaffected by the war. It shows that Artyom, even though he has been scarred, he hasn't changed from the beginning of his story. Artyom is a man who wants to live in a world of peace, and Miller, also wanting that, got caught up in his position as colonel, so he ignored the people to keep his place. Artyom, he has only ever really wanted the best for everyone. And the game ending back in the metro, in a dead city, allows the characters and the player to look back at what they've done throughout their shared story. Artyom realizes that he fights to protect the ones he loves, and Miller learns that his position in a rat race doesn't matter if there's no one there to watch. And this series sometimes feels so fast-paced and violent that the ending of this game, slowing down as much as it did, kind of feels nice, you know? It feels like the story has come to an end. And with that, I think this video should also come to its end. So that's about it with the Metro series for now. I hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I enjoyed making it. And I love the Metro games, probably more than any other game series that I've played. And I hope that that came through in this video, and hopefully you'll come back for the Stalker video and the Chernobylite video. I'm only really doing all these because they feel weirdly similar, and it's just weird to me that, you know, all of these games kind of came out from the same country. So, I don't know, I just wanted to talk about that. The Stalker video is next, and I don't know, I'm kind of excited to do that. Honestly, that's all I can think of saying at the end of this. So, bye.